Hello, and welcome to The Other Side of the Bell, a podcast dedicated to everything trumpet, brought to you by Bob Reeves Brass. We'll help you take your trumpet playing to the next level. I'm John Snell, trumpet specialist here at Bob Reeves Brass, and I'll be your host for this episode. Joining me today is trumpeter Imogen Whitehead. We'll get to Imogen's interview, hearing a word from our sponsor, and some trumpet news. Today's episode is brought to you by Bob Reeves Brass, who share your passion for creating extraordinary music. You know that feeling when your instrument just clicks and the music flows effortlessly? That's what Bob Reeves Brass has been helping customers do since 1968. We've helped brass musicians like you achieve their dreams by ensuring their equipment is always in perfect harmony. We know you want to immerse yourself in the art of music making, and we're here to remove any barriers between you and your creative vision. Bob Reeves Brass is truly your one-stop shop for everything you need to fuel your passion and create music that touches hearts and souls. So go ahead, let us help you elevate your sound to new heights. Don't wait another moment to elevate your musical journey with Bob Reeves Brass. Connect with us at bobreeves.com, shoot us an email at info@bobreeves.com, and keep up with the latest news on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at Bob Reeves Brass. Embrace your passion for music and let Bob Reeves Brass be your partner in creating the extraordinary. Well, it is a rainy day here in Southern California, which of course means LA drivers are driving off the road. And there's floods and all kinds of fun stuff. For everyone else in the world, it's just about a quarter inch of rain. But here it turns everything into chaos. But nonetheless, we are going to persevere and talk about the trumpet today. And what a fabulous guest we have. Just finished up my interview with Imogen, and stay tuned. She's got some amazing experiences, great stories, and we had a great conversation. Before we get to Imogen, though, I want to, first of all, thank you, everyone who came by. We had a successful trip to North Carolina. I can't thank the guys at Greg Black Mouthpieces enough. Greg, Ben Strickland, Justin, Spencer, I'm probably forgetting someone, Will, Joami, thank you. But they have such a great crew at Greg Black Mouthpieces at Mount Holly. They made me feel at home for the couple days we were there. And then I shared a booth with them at the North Carolina Music Educators Association conference and had a lot of great podcast listeners come by. Scott, who I've given a few shout outs before, drove all the way up from Atlanta to spend not 1, but 2 days at the shop, hanging, telling stories. He got a few valve alignments, picked up some Greg Black mouthpieces. So it was a good 1-2 punch between Reeves and Greg Black. Great time hanging with Scott and telling stories. Oh, we had John, another John at NCMA, Justin, Cameron, Renee, Lisa, and I'm sure there's other few folks that came by and mentioned they were podcast listeners. So if I forgot your name, I'm sorry. I need to make a list when I'm at these things. As always, we sold out on valve alignments. I was doing the last horn as we were getting ready to pack up. So thank you to everyone who showed up. Some mouthpieces, some Ulven mutes found some new homes. And, the camaraderie. We go not just to, earn money and to do business, but to hang and to share stories. And speaking of stories, Greg Black and Ben have a ton of them. And the stories in their files, Greg has all of the, or a lot of the original Giardinelli files. Even I saw some Zotola files, Claudio Roditi and Louis Armstrong and Bud Herseth. And you name it. So it was hard to get work done because we kept going through the files. Lynn Biviano, lead players, commercial players, classical players, you name it. Dizzy Gillespie. So check our Instagram because we took a couple photos and videos of Greg Black's files that he had. So much history in there. And for some, it's just some old lead templates and old envelopes and things. But for us in the business, it's where we came from, and it's the tools that our heroes, our idols used. So it gives us one step closer to connecting with them and seeing what they did. So anyway, thank you again to everyone in North Carolina and Greg Black and the folks out there. I had unpacked my bags and I'm packing them right up again because I am heading right out to Tokyo, Japan. I'm flying out. I will be at Joy Brass in Tokyo, November 20th to 24th. doing the same thing, valve alignments, day in and day out, mouthpiece consultations. We'll have some Charlie Davis horns there. We'll also have some Ulven mutes as well. So if you want a valve alignment, please make sure you contact Joy Brass, email or call them and set up an appointment because they are limited. And walk-ins are also welcome if you want to come by and say hi. So I will see you in Tokyo and come back just in time for Thanksgiving. Well, that's all the news we have for this episode. I will be back with you once I get back from Japan. And I hope everyone here has a wonderful Thanksgiving, whether you celebrate here in the U.S. or around the world. I am eternally grateful to all of our listeners. Actually, one more I want to bring up. Jonathan just emailed. He's a podcast listener. I talked about a few folks who had gone, binge listened 144 episodes. So I want to give a little special shout out to Jonathan because he started on episode 1 and now as of November 8th, he was up to episode 30. So we should keep track of Jonathan to see how far along he is because when he'll get to this episode, he'll have a little surprise because he'll have a special shout out. But he is completely hooked on the podcast and he is on his journey to become an orchestral symphony player. And he said the podcast is helping him fill in the gaps in his playing, both by learning and also when he's taking a rest and he listens to the podcast, which also he brought up a point, and a few of you have as well, about adding playing clips and musical clips from some of the guests we have. And today's guest, Imogen, she has an album out, and I would love more than anything to play clips from it. And there's a few reasons why we don't. We have done a few in previous episodes through the years. And even if we have the rights, either through fair use or just the artist says, yes, you can play clips for my album, the algorithms don't really care. So not to get technical, but our podcast is broadcast to so many different platforms, podcast platforms, and then YouTube, video, etc. And so many of them have copyright algorithms that will just look for copyrighted music and then you get a strike. And the thing is, even if you have the license, even if you're allowed to play the music, even if it would be considered fair use here in the US, it still could be an issue, in which case your podcast gets taken down and then you have to take time to fight it. And unfortunately, I don't have a team to do that for me, which unfortunately means it's not worth it. And don't get me wrong, I think copyright protections are great and should be there for artists because if you create an album or recording or write something, someone shouldn't be able to use it for free. However, in instances like our podcast, when you are able to use it, the pendulum is swung the other way where it's a lot harder to use something even if you're rightfully allowed to. So thank you for the suggestions about playing music clips. What we do try to do is provide links where you can find clips on YouTube or Spotify for the artists and kind of do your own research if you're interested in hearing the artists we have on the podcast. And then the other thing, someone mentioned in North Carolina about leaving reviews and show notes and things like that. I say, check the show notes, check the description. And I realize, I'm kind of technologically inept and I don't know where some of those things are. So basically what I'm saying, check the show notes or check the description. If you go to bobreeves.com/podcast, or you go to bobreeves.com and click on the blog link, you'll see all of the show note pages for the episodes we've released. So there's pictures of the artist, there's links where you can find the episode and listen to it on the different platforms, biography, of the artist, and then the links we talk about in the episode. So that you have to go to your browser and find the Bob Reeves site and go to our blog page, and that'll get you there. So any of the links we talk about in the episode, like I said, and if you want to learn more about the artist, and depending on the platform you use, the description will just be down below the episode, and you might have to click read more or see more or something like that. And that'll be on YouTube and Spotify and Apple. There'll be a little description, and we try to put links in there as well. So if you're listening, when I mention those things, you'll know where to go. Okay, so at this time, that's all I have for today. Let's get right to my interview with Imogen Whitehead. British trumpeter Imogen Whitehead is in demand across the UK and internationally as a soloist, chamber musician, and orchestral principal trumpet. She is currently principal trumpet of Britten Symphonia, She is a passionate advocate for new music, sitting on the International Trumpet Guild's New Works Committee, and has premiered works by composers including Sally Beamish and Stephen Dodgson, and recently released her debut solo album, Connection, featuring new repertoire and her ongoing championing of the flugelhorn. Recent and upcoming highlights include Britten Symphonia performances of Barry Mills' Trumpet Concerto and Hummel's Trumpet Concerto, broadcast live on BBC Radio 3, as well as concerto and recital performances at St. Martin in the Fields, proms at St. Jude's, and Wimbledon International Music Festival. Imogen also appears regularly as guest principal with leading orchestras, including touring Europe with Aurora Orchestra and the London Symphony Orchestra. She can be heard on major film soundtracks, including Maestro and Saltburn. She is artist-in-residence with St. Martin's Voices, a member of Neoteric Ensemble, an ARAM of the Royal Academy of Music, and is deeply involved in education and outreach through projects with Galsy, Britten Symphonia, and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra's Resound program. And now here's my interview with Imogen Whitehead. Well, I'm so excited to have joining me from across the pond, all the way from the UK, Imogen Whitehead. How are you doing today, Imogen?
I'm very well, thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Actually, I should say, how are you doing this evening?
True.
You're spending your Friday night talking about trumpet. Talk about a diehard brass player.
It's a dark and gloomy November evening, but pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Well, actually, we're having kind of UK weather here. It's cold and a little bit of storm, which is unusual for LA. So
you're welcome.
Got my coffee.
Nice.
And excited to talk about trumpet. And let's start right from the beginning. How did you find the trumpet, or did the trumpet find you? Or did you start with cornet like a lot of folks?
Well, I did not start on the cornet. Over here, that is really common, especially with the brass band traditions that we have in the UK. Lots of people start playing on the cornet. But no, I think I would say the trumpet found me, I would say, because I was so young when I kind of apparently became quite obsessed with the trumpet. I don't remember choosing it in that sense. But my parents are both musical, and my dad, not professional musicians, but very musical. And my dad was a sound engineer, sound studio manager at Radio 3, which is the BBC classical music radio station over here. And he was in that job for like 35 years. But yeah, through him, I suppose I listened to lots of classical music. And my parents took me to a concert in central London when I was 5. And it was one of these ones where you get to meet the instruments and meet the players afterwards. And apparently, I don't remember this, but apparently I went to meet the trumpet player and look at the trumpet. I think I tried the trumpet and could just make a good sound straight away. And everyone around saying, oh, that's impressive or something. And that's good. And I just kind of fell in love with it. And my parents, I mean, some people may have heard this story before who know me, but the story is that I have a letter. My parents had the letter that I wrote to Father Christmas that year, asking for all sorts of things like a TV with channels and a pink bikini and a Barbie and all sorts of things. And at the end it says, and a real trumpet. And I was a real trumpet. And I was only 5 years old. And I think I was deemed actually a bit too young. I think I didn't, I still had my baby teeth. And so I didn't actually start till I was 7. But just the fact that, so I don't remember this, but the fact that I was so desperate for a trumpet from that age. And that's the only thing they can imagine. That's where it came from. So I started.
Still have that letter?
They still have it, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, obviously, the real letter went to Father Christmas. They have a copy of the letter,
They have a copy. So, Father Christmas sent a copy back.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean,
and perfect, we're going to be posting this in the holidays, so this perfect. Get us in the spirit.
Indeed, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble if anyone's still, about Father Christmas. But yeah, so I started the piano when I was 5, and I have an identical twin sister and an older brother, both musical as well. But my sister, she has played lots of different instruments over the years. She's kind of got very good very quickly at lots of things and got a bit bored, I think, and kind of moved on and think, what's the next challenge, and tried different things, cello, or piano, cello, flute, saxophone, oboe, like guitar, all sorts of things. And I have just been on the, blinkered, I just want to play the trumpet. That's my origins with it.
Amazing. What a great story. So you started with piano and then started trumpet at 7. Did you start right away with lessons, or were you playing in a school band?
Yeah, I started with lessons, individual lessons. And actually I started when I was 7, and between the ages of 7 and 12, I think I had trombone playing teachers. So actually, something I've always thought was probably quite interesting is that no one ever played me a trumpet until I had done kind of what we do called grade 7. Here I'd done, almost all of the grades. And I just don't think, apart from that, maybe that day where I met the trumpeter or something, I don't believe anyone really played me a trumpet, said this is how it should sound from the start. So I think, the sound that I made was really just kind of came from me, and no one telling me how it should be.
Interesting. So, well, I mean, would you do any listening? I mean, obviously with your parents and...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I don't really remember. I wasn't like super into orchestral music or, at that kind of age or anything like that. I didn't really have any kind of trumpet heroes until I was a little bit older. But yeah, it was just, I had just, these teachers were really brilliant. So I had this trombone playing teacher from when I was about 7 till 11 at my primary school. And that school really valued classical music, which was amazing. So the head teacher of that school really had a great love for classical music. And so the school orchestra was a really, major part of school life. And we had assemblies every morning, singing hymns and things. And there was an assembly orchestra, I think, every day. So they would arrange these hymns for the orchestra. And it's quite a random, eclectic mix of players. But I would play pretty much every morning in the assembly orchestra. And I loved it.
What? How cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously you were enthralled with the trumpet. Was there a point where you thought this is something you could do for your whole life or like as a career? Was that ever enter the picture, or was it just something you enjoyed doing?
It was something I just enjoyed for a long time. I suppose with my dad being in the classical music industry, but not as a performer, I suppose I did know that, it's very much an option that people, did have their full-time work in orchestras and performing on instruments. But I mean, I really remember there was a clarinetist who lived on a street next to ours when I was growing up. And I so often used to walk down the road and hear her. She must have been in her 50s or something. I used to hear her practicing. And I used to think, oh my gosh, she's still practicing, and she's, in her 50s and she still has to practice. I know she probably loved her practice, but I think, growing up, to be honest, I found practice like a real chore. It was quite hard work. I wasn't really someone who would just want to play for hours and hours a day. I think it was quite hard for my parents. They wanted to encourage me, and they could tell that, it was worth it to push me to do it. But I certainly wasn't like all these people who say, oh, I just, wanted to play all the time. So practice I still feel a bit like that, to be honest. I wish I had it like tattooed somewhere, you like playing, because the idea of practice, every day it feels like a bit of a mountain to climb. And as soon as I've started, I love it. And as soon as it's just the idea of it. And that's been with me since childhood, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your transparency. You just assume someone at your level, just like, I can't wait to get in and start practicing and woodshedding and all that.
Different days, depends what I'm working on, I suppose. But yeah, it's just something that's how I've always felt. But I always I never went to a specialist music school, or I never did kind of, I had amazing music opportunities from when I was growing up. So really great local concert band, big band, and a brilliant local youth orchestra. So I was kind of very well catered for in terms of like extracurricular playing, and my teachers were fantastic. So I did have a trumpet playing teacher when I was 12 till 18.
So you got to hear the trumpet.
I did, and and one of his favorite things was playing duets, and that was suddenly just such a joy to actually get to play with someone, because for my whole start of my playing life, I'd never really played alongside another trumpeter. Yeah. And actually, I was Ashley Hall-Tye, who's a good friend of mine who you interviewed. I remember her talking in her interview about a teacher that she went to, and maybe someone who sort of said, oh, I'll listen to her, but I don't really take on, young students or whatever it was. I think someone is saying maybe they only take college students, not children or something. And, we had quite a similar thing. There was a brilliant trumpeter who lived very locally, and my mum got in touch with him to say, would you consider teaching Imogen? And he said, well, I'm not sure I've got the space or the time, but, I'll hear her, kind of thing. And, my mum says she does remember the feeling of us going round there and this guy seeming quite sort of reserved and not really wanting to get involved. And then basically as soon as I played, he just said, yeah, I'll take her on. And I think it's the same thing happened to Ashley. So I remember enjoying hearing that, thinking actually it's a very similar story. But, he just wasn't sure didn't want to commit. And then actually once he'd heard me play, he was interested.
So there was something there, obviously, he heard in your playing that
I think so,
yeah.
And I think my mum felt a bit like, I did try and tell you, she wasn't, I guess maybe it's a British thing. We don't big ourselves up too much, or, we're quite reserved sometimes with that. And I think, especially, someone thinking, a parent saying, oh, my daughter's, this amazing trumpeter. I think most people would just roll their eyes and think, that's a very, a mother who thinks that. But actually,
we're all proud of our children.
Yeah, right? Of course. Yeah. But I think she felt quite vindicated when he sort of said, oh yeah, I see what you mean, kind of thing.
So tell me, what kind of stuff did you work on now that you're staying with a trumpet teacher properly? I mean, is it general Arbans, Clarks, things like that?
Well, he was actually he's trained as a jazz trumpeter. He went to the Guildhall School of Music as a jazz player, and his dad actually was quite a well-known jazz double bass player who played with like Sinatra, played on like the original Guys and Dolls recordings, and some amazing stuff. So we actually did a lot of jazz, and I loved kind of playing like jazzy duets and things, but he did encourage me to improvise pretty much every week. And I don't think I ever really got comfortable with it. I don't know whether it's I don't know what it is, maybe a female thing, maybe just a me thing, but I just had this kind of, I hated doing anything that I thought might be wrong or might be, just I liked to do what was on the page and do what I was told type of thing, especially at that age. So I found it quite hard to liberate myself from that and just play and think, there's no wrong answer here, or there's no right answer and there's no wrong answer. So I'm sure it was really good for me doing all the improvising, but I've never really got comfortable with it. But the thing that have always been so grateful to him for is that, his name's Andy Bush, by the way, he's brilliant. And I've been so grateful that he could tell how much I just loved playing tunes. And he kind of just indulged me with that, I think, for most of those years. He just was always suggesting new concertos, new books where you have the kind of play along CD. That makes me, I feel like already makes me sound old, because people, what's a CD? Some young, my students think we don't own any, have no way of playing a CD anymore. But yes, I used to adore playing those books, and just like my parents would be having dinner and I would, actually, in terms of practicing, I suppose I never really considered it practicing, but that's the kind of thing I would sit down and just play the whole book through, serenade them while they were having dinner, whether they liked it or not. And I used to adore doing that. So books of Gershwin arrangements, or all sorts of things. Bob Mintzer, jazz books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I used to love all of that. So this teacher really encouraged me with all of that. And we didn't actually do much technique work at all. I do remember him introducing me to triple tonguing, double tonguing, and some slightly more technical things. But actually, because I went to study at the Royal Academy of Music after learning with him, and I did own a copy of the Arban, but it was very pristine. It hadn't really been touched very much, and I had played a few things from it, and it wasn't like he was setting me up to not be prepared, but I just, I think I wasn't so interested in doing that stuff. So by the time I got to music conservatoire, I realized I had quite a lot of catching up to do, but the musical side of that, I think was always strong from me.
Interesting. So, I mean, it sounds like during grade school, after 12, so you're getting introduced to all kinds of different styles and performing for your parents as they're having dinner, things like that. Do you think that not doing did you already have strong fundamentals? And is that, you think, why you didn't do too much of that, like the Arbans and that sort of thing? Or
I guess I probably picked it up as I went along, I suppose. Yeah. I'm sure there were things I did have to work on, and I just don't really remember, I never did the Arban studies. I never did any Clark, any other thing than the Arban book, I suppose. It was just not a priority, I suppose. And I got a long way, I think, not doing that. And it never kind of really came to kind of shoot me in the foot or whatever that I hadn't done that. But it just meant that I did recognize that I was a bit behind other people in that sense. But yeah, I mean, it meant that I really loved all the playing I did. And when I got to I think I was 17 and kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do university wise. And my sister, as I said, twin sister, we both knew that music was the thing we loved doing, but she decided to do an academic music degree. And I knew that I wasn't really interested in doing that. So I was more interested in the performance side of it. And so one of our teachers at school, music teachers, told me about, music colleges and conservatoires. And that was just something, a world I didn't know at all. I'd never been to a music college before. I never stepped foot in one. So, with this teacher and with the encouragement of my trumpet teacher, I went to the open days of these conservatoires, went to just get a feel for the place. I had some lessons with Michael Laird, who's a trumpeter. He he pioneered the 4-hole system on the natural trumpet. He's an incredible British player, long retired now, but he was someone who was a local player and had taught at the Royal College of Music for years. And my trumpet teacher said, I think you should go for a lesson with Michael Laird. And my parents, who also didn't really know much about the music colleges, they came to pick me up after this lesson. And it was just such an amazing thing to have done, because he opened the front door and just said to them, she will get in everywhere. She has to do this. This has to be her path. And it was just and for me to hear that as well, it's like, all right, okay. And for someone like that to feel like he really believed in me, but he just said, wow, she absolutely has to do this. Yeah, it was an incredible, wow, just push in the right direction. And I think that's what we needed, just to give us all the confidence of like, okay, because university was so the trodden path with all the, with my school especially. So yeah, it was a really amazing moment, that.
What a moment. And to have somebody go to bat for you like that. What incredible. So you prepared you have to audition for the conservatories, and
so I applied. Like? Yeah, I applied for the 4 main London colleges. So the Royal Academy of Music, the Royal College of Music, Guildhall School, and Trinity Conservatoire. And Michael Laird was right. I got into them all, and it was pretty amazing to have the choice. I had one consultation lesson in advance of the auditions at the Royal Academy with Professor James Watson, or Jim Watson, and he was the head of brass at the time. And my parents had said, we'll pay for you to have one lesson. We can afford one. And so I chose that. And that was an amazing afternoon. I went to play to him, and he also, I suppose, in a similar way, just sort of said, I want you to come here, kind of thing, or, before I'd even really done the audition. It was very incredibly encouraging. And so that kind of was already in my head, like my favorite one. And the audition process, I had to play different things for each college. But the quite nice thing about it was all the auditions are kind of before Christmas in your last year of school. So while most people are waiting for, to have done their exams to get their results and find out if they're going to university, you get the result before Christmas, and you know whether you're going or not to. And I think you had to get the equivalent of 2 E's, you just about had to scrape a pass in your exams to get into these places. So I remember that being a great feeling, getting to Christmas thinking, okay, I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm going. And I'd accepted, in fact, just before accepting my place at the Royal Academy, I rang Jim Watson and said, I want to come to the Academy, but I only want to come if you'll be my teacher. And he said, yes, that's amazing. And yes, that's what's going to happen. And very sadly, about 2 weeks after that, he died really suddenly. He had a heart attack. No. Yeah, tragic. And
geez.
Just kind of, I think he was 59. It was just like completely out of the blue, devastating for everyone. I didn't even know him well at all, but for everyone there. And so that kind of threw me a lot. And I thought, I don't know what I want to do now. Do I even want to study there? I don't know any of the other teachers. Maybe I want to go to the Guildhall, where my trumpet teacher that I had at the time, where he'd been, and he was very encouraging about that school. Yeah, it kind of threw me into disarray. But I kind of ended up thinking, well, actually, I'm sure any of the teachers, and I was right in thinking that any of the teachers at the academy would be amazing. And just felt actually, I just had a feeling when I was in the building as well that I just felt like it was right for me. So I still stuck with that decision, but it was certainly a very strange way to kind of get there. And the start of my first year was this, this new head of brass who, it was very different than what it could have been.
Yeah. Yeah. So who did you study with at the Royal Academy?
So my main teacher was the head of brass. He's Mark David. He was principal trumpet in the Philharmonia Orchestra for many years. Now principal trumpet at the Academy St Martin in the Fields Chamber Orchestra. So yeah, he was my main teacher. I think, I don't know what it's like in the US, but certainly in British conservatoires for brass, or mainly even just for trumpet, you have quite a lot of different teachers. So you're not kind of anyone's particular student. So I think I had probably 7 teachers across my 4 years there, or something, like lots of different people, lots of different input, which kind of has its pluses and negatives, good things and bad things about that.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I think it's a little different here. Generally, you have, some of the bigger universities might have 2 or 3 trumpet faculty. And I know some students that'll switch mid-course, but some of them are just for the 4-year undergrad degree. You're with the same teacher and then maybe go on to someone else for graduate studies. So 7 teachers. Were they all trumpet players, or was it brass faculty that you're, wow.
No, all trumpet teachers. And I think that there may have been more than that, or maybe there are now, but, yeah, it's incredible. They're all often principal trumpets of the major orchestras, or we had to do the natural trumpet. We had to play Baroque trumpet as well as part of the course. That was compulsory. And yeah, I really enjoyed the mix of different people. I do remember, I think in my second year, I had Mark David. I also had another different teacher who I got on very well with. And then someone else for natural trumpet as well. But someone who I got on well with for modern trumpet. But I have to say, I was quite scared of Mark. But in a way that kind of meant that I worked very hard for him and tried very hard, and meant that I did not want to turn up to my lessons unprepared. But it actually meant that I gave all my energy and focus to my lessons with him. And then I'd suddenly look in my diary and be like, oh, yikes, I've got a lesson tomorrow with this other person. And I hadn't even really thought about it. And I sort of ended up thinking, actually, and so I'd repeat, the things I'd done in my lessons with Mark, basically with this other teacher. And I think I ended up saying, well, actually, that's not efficient. That's not going to work. So the following year, I did just have Mark.
Okay.
And then in my last year, I had Mark, and then another different teacher as well. And it was nice to have a balance of more than one person. I found in the end, I did like to mix it up, have a few different opinions, play different repertoire with different people. But yeah, overall, very positive experience studying with him, studying there.
Now, did you start freelancing at this point, or were you just purely academic, doing your studies, doing your practicing at school?
Yeah, well, I started freelancing, started working professionally in my 3rd year out of 4 years of undergraduate. And I only did an undergrad. I didn't do a postgrad there. So it was Mark actually who gave me my first big break, I guess. But it was playing 3rd trumpet for the Academy St Martin in the Fields, this chamber orchestra. And I was playing 3rd trumpet in Haydn's Nelson Mass. And if anyone knows that piece or that part, you basically you play about, I don't know, 20 bars or something, and you're doubling the second trumpet for all of it. It's just like little fanfares that you play. So you never play anything on your own or anything's exposed, and I think it's all on a bottom C or something. So it was like the most perfect thing to have as like my first piece of work. I was playing 3rd trumpet, and Michael Laird, this trumpeter who I'd spoken about before, he was on 2nd trumpet. So that was really special to kind of actually, with my first ever piece of work, to be with him.
Amazing.
And he was just about to retire, I think that year or something. So that was very special. And yeah, I did a tour with them, and it was with Sir Neville Marriner, who had founded the orchestra, and it was really incredible. And it was also quite funny because Neville was quite old by this point. I think it was I don't think he did that much after this tour, but because of age and stage and things. It was quite a cushy tour because we would travel and then we would never do a concert on the day that we traveled anywhere. It was very civilized and we were in very nice hotels. We were all looked after super well. And I remember people saying to me, it's only downhill from here. You've started, your first bit of work is kind of the most comfortable thing you'll ever do in this orchestra with this conductor. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, your first gig is with St. Martin's in the Fields.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty amazing. But then, nowadays I do other, big symphonic orchestra tours where you definitely do a concert on the day that you travel, and it's all a lot more economical than it was with that particular tour.
And what an honor to be one of the last to play under Neville Mariner's Sir Neville Mariner's baton.
Yes, Sir Neville Mariner. Yeah,
can't forget the Sir.
Yeah, so that was amazing. And then I did do some auditioning when I was at the academy. There really weren't that many jobs I felt that came up when I was there. It was really few and far between. And then once I left, it suddenly felt like, in an amazing way, lots and lots of jobs in the UK became available. And yeah, I suppose I was sort of right place, right time for some of those. So yeah, I mean, I had planned to do a postgrad actually in Germany. That was my original plan. And for various reasons, that just kind of never came to fruition. It never happened. But I sort of decided that I created my own postgrad because I was part of a kind of graduate training orchestra, I suppose you'd call it. It was called South Bank Sinfonia. It's now called Sinfonia Smith Square. I'll never remember to get the right name, but it's a chamber orchestra that you audition for, and it's a 1-year program. You get paid a small salary, I suppose, and yeah, you rehearse and do concerts every week with different conductors, different venues. You go on tour, and I was part of that for the first year when I left the academy, and that was for me a perfect experience, just to get this experience of playing all this different repertoire, but with the same group of people. So you kind of get to know your colleagues, you get to play in a certain way with them, and I did that for a year, and then I actually had some funding to do some studying for my solo playing, and I chose to go to Norway to study with Tina Ting Helseth. I'd done a course with her and decided that I loved her playing, and I loved her, just her whole presence was just so wonderful. She's just a lovely, lovely person.
What an experience.
So I was able to spend this money to go study with her.
I mean, did it just fall from the skies? How do you find funding?
No,
to fund something like that.
Well, that was well, it actually came with a thing called the Royal Philharmonic Society, which is based in London. And when I had originally planned to go to Germany, I had applied for some funding from them to buy myself a German trumpet, a rotary trumpet. And they had offered me £5,000 towards that, which was amazing. And then when the Germany plans fell through, I contacted them and said, look, I'm not going to Germany anymore, but I understand that this money was technically for this instrument, but I'm just wondering whether you'd consider, still allowing me to do something else with it. And thankfully they were really encouraging and said, we want to support you, whether that's wherever you're studying or what you're doing. So yeah, they said you can choose to do something else with it. So I decided I wanted to go and still do some studying abroad, but just in a very different way to what I'd planned. And yeah, I went and lived in Oslo for 2 months, got an Airbnb for 2 months, and went and had lessons kind of privately with Tina, but also lessons with other people there from the Oslo Philharmonic, Oslo Opera Ballet. It was amazing. Yeah.
Incredible. So why, I mean, it seems like an obvious question, but I mean, because I love Tina's playing, but what was it specifically about her that made you want to go study from her and spend the 2 months up there?
Well, I'd been to a summer course that she was teaching on, this is summer of 2016, kind of during my year of my South Bank Sinfonia residency. And the pianist who I work with most regularly, she was a accompanist on this course, and she'd done it the year before when Tina was there as well. And she said to me, I really think you'd get on. I think you'd really like her. You should come next year. So I asked this, Royal Philharmonic Society, could I please spend £500 of this 5,000, or, a bit of this amount going on this course, because I really think this might be who I want to study with. So they said yes. And I went out there to Oslo and spent the week with Tina. And yeah, I mean, I just think, obviously her playing it's so kind of natural from the heart. Just kind of flows out of her. But even things like the fact that she doesn't like wearing shoes when she plays, because she just likes feeling grounded, and I just loved her kind of openness, I think, really open vibe, and her energy. It was just really kind of like you just wanted to be around her. And she was, she's a big deal. She's a star, but you didn't feel that. You didn't feel like that she never made you feel like she was, on a different level to you. And I just found that, really wonderful. I felt like we kind of became friends that week. We were both super into nail painting, so we'd have pictures. I've got pictures of me giving her manicures and choosing different colors, and we just had a really fun time. And her musical ideas as well. And when I'm teaching people now, there are so many things that I always make sure I credit to her, but I say, this is a Tina thing. This is a Tina thing. She just, uses lots of ideas and lots of imagery in her teaching that I found that I could really get on board with, which was fun. So at the end of that week, I just said to her, so I happen to have this money, I was very lucky to have this money kind of sitting there waiting for me to decide what to do with it. And I really believe that coming to learn with you would be the best use of this money. Is there a time that because she's had a very busy performing career, but I said, do you know if there's any time in the next year or something where you might be based in Oslo for a certain period of time? And she said, well, yeah, I think the start of next year, January, February would be the best time. So yeah, I flew out on the 4th of January or something for 7 or 8 weeks. And it was, very dark, very cold, very snowy, but an amazing thing to do.
So, then you're stuck inside to learn from one of the best.
Indeed.
So, I mean, you brought up some of her ideas that you would share and credit her. Can you share some of them?
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, things that make me laugh because they sound very Norwegian. I'm sure she'd laugh at this as well. Or very Scandinavian. Things like, looking after every note in the phrase, even the last note. She says she describes it as, don't leave any of your children out in the forest, alone. Look after them all. Which I like thinking about that. And she does all the time, little gestures. It's not so good for the listeners of this podcast, but anyone watching, she sort of, when she wants you to play with a super sweet, beautiful sound, she'll just sort of like rub her cheek with her back of her fingers, and that kind of gesture of just like, oh, that softness, like almost like rubbing a baby's cheek or something, that kind of soft skin, and just that feeling of like, I think for me, that's just immediately I can think of the kind of sound or the softness that I want to get in my playing when I just think of that. So I do that a lot, or use that a lot. She also talks about things like when you want to start a phrase, and it's quite a hard one to start. Sometimes you got to take the breath and then just start, but you almost want to imagine you're already going, like you're already you're already on track. So she talks about it like walking along and picking up a heavy bag of shopping off the ground and just swinging it straight up into the air as you're walking. So you're striding along, you pick up this bag of shopping and you just keep walking and it swings along with you. And so that kind of the breath in is like the pick up the shopping and go. It's kind of like that momentum, I think, that helps you start a piece sometimes, or helps you start a phrase. They're quite niche. They're quite like interesting ideas, but there's a lot.
I love that. But how she's connecting to the senses, the visuals or the touch, like,
Yeah. And I think actually the one I remember, I think that the taking a breath in the middle of a phrase or something, she talks about it a bit like if you're running a marathon and you got to take a drink of water, people are holding the water out on the side for you, and you don't want to stop and then take a drink and then hand the water back and then carry on running it or start running again. You need to take that water. You're not stopping running. You swig it back, you chuck it over your shoulder and you carry on running. And that kind of idea of like, when you need to top up in a phrase, you can't just let the music stop flowing or the air stop flowing. You have to keep it going, but in a very, organic way. It's just, there's so many things that she just, that just stuck with me. And I think they always seem to help other people when I mention them to them as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't relate to that last one because when I run a marathon, I stop at the water table, I pour it over my head, I go, oh, as I sit there chugging as people are running past me, and then no.
But you've run a marathon, have you?
I mean, it's been a while.
That's
I
amazing.
shuffle. I
have
shuffle
not.
a marathon. I shuffle. I finish marathons. I wouldn't say
that is
run,
great. A completer, not a competitor. That is great. Yes.
Get out and do something, right? But
Yeah.
not to take away from the imagery, because I get exactly what she's saying. I just had to laugh. I'm like, nope, I'm not that person. So that it brings up the question. So you're playing in orchestras, you're doing chamber music. Now you're, studying with Tina to develop your solo playing. Where did you see your career going at this point? Did you want to do a little bit of everything, or did you have any particular career goals that you wanted to go for?
Yeah, well, I mean, things kind of changed for me during my time studying, because when I first went to the academy, I was really pretty dead set and wanted to be a soloist, like massively inspired by Alison Balsam. I think I was 12 when I first heard of her. In fact, on my Haydn trumpet concerto part, I've got, this teacher who I started with when I was 12. He just wrote on it, AlisonBalsam.com ? And I've still got it there in this pencil from him, just saying, I think you should check this person out. I think she must have been quite newly on the scene, or just, really her star was rising at that point. And I just remember looking her up or hearing about her and thinking, oh my gosh, and buying her album and playing along to it all the time and thinking that's exactly what I want to do. And when I got to the academy, I was quite open about that and saying, I want to be a soloist. And I thought everyone would be like saying the same thing. And actually almost no one was interested in being a soloist. Everyone was interested in orchestral playing. So in some ways it was good for me. I got a lot of opportunities as a soloist because they said, oh, Imogen, I was always at the forefront of people's minds when there were solo opportunities. But the more playing I did in orchestras, the work I started doing professionally in orchestras, I thought, I really love this. And I love being part of this team, but I still kind of knew that I got the biggest thrill out of playing at the front or being a soloist. So I always knew I wanted to do both, I suppose, or I never wanted to lose the solo side of things. But yeah, the more playing I started doing, the more I was doing auditions and getting trials in jobs over in the UK. The trial process is it's maybe quite different to anywhere else in the world, I think. But the trials, it's quite lengthy. They can go on a long time. And I was getting, quite lucky with those.
So like you win an audition and then you're not really in the group yet kind of thing? Is that
how
the trials work?
You don't really, I suppose winning an audition is not, in the UK, we don't really ever say that, because it's very rare that, only one person from an audition would get offered a trial. Normally, I've done auditions where, maybe there's 10 or 15 people offered a trial from the audition day, and you're each given patches of work, and often they need to hear each of you in different repertoire, different scenarios. So these trials can go on for years. And I was on trial at English National Opera for their principal trumpet job for 6 years. And I loved the work that I did there. Wow. But it's an incredibly, interesting maybe is the word, but I don't know what I don't want to say. It's a kind of bizarre thing, because you go, you prepare, you go and do the work and give it your all. And then at the end of that patch of work, especially opera, when you've been there, consistently for a few weeks, then they just say, thanks, Imogen, see you soon. And you just think, oh, I hope so, thank you. And you either wait for an email to say, thanks, but no thanks, or, are you free for this next patch of work? And it's quite a volatile way to exist, I think, being on trial like that.
Yeah. God, that sounds miserable.
Yeah.
And then how do you plan your life around that,
Yeah. And especially like thinking of future and things, it is tricky. And I certainly know of one trumpeter who he was offered a principal trumpet job, and he had to call around, I think, 6 other orchestras that he was also on principal trumpet on a trial with as principal trumpet, and kind of say, I've decided to go for this job or whatever. But the stress, I think, for him of being on these 5 or 6 principal trumpet trials over a period of time, and every time you go to work thinking, I need to do my absolute best because I want to get this job. So the audition is obviously a big part. You need to get through the audition to get a trial, but it's very, very much only the start of the process over here, rather than winning anything on the day.
Yeah, that sounds brutal.
Yeah, it's
You
tough.
just dragged on. You said 6 years you were on trial with that one?
6 years at ENO, yeah. And I mean, part of that was during COVID, so it wasn't exactly like it was
Okay.
consistently
Yeah.
for 6 years, but certainly the process was ongoing for that whole time, and they did have bits of different work, and I enjoyed it. And in some ways, you just have to think this is just you're paid properly, and it's paid it's normal work with the possible bonus of a job at the end of it. You kind of have to slightly detach yourself. It's very hard to do, but detach yourself from what might be the outcome and just enjoy the actual work that you're doing. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I think they're definitely trying to make it a less vague process, or make it a bit more transparent across orchestral boards in the UK, because maybe now there's a rule about trials have to be maximum 2 years or something like that, or aim to be decided after 2 years. But that's, I think there's also a bit of pushback on that, because people are saying, well, we just can't possibly get through all the trialists we want to hear in that time. And it is really it's quite contentious,
I had
actually.
no idea. It's fascinating. Terrifying and fascinating, the same, so to think if you make it in through the trial and you're in that group, but you're still auditioning, right? Because you don't know yet.
Yeah, well,
I'm
exactly.
assuming,
You're
right?
trialing for the job. So yeah, they have no kind of state hold over you. You can trial for you audition and trial for as many orchestras as you want to, or as you can deal with, cope with the pressure. But in some ways, a good thing about it, I suppose, is that as a kind of fresh young graduate, you might not necessarily play an audition and someone think that was the best audition of the day, but you might be in the best 10 auditions of the day, in which case you would get a trial probably, or 5 or 10, and so I think it's probably helpful in that way to kind of start building that work and people to give you a chance, because they're not just looking for that one person on the day. They're looking for people who they like the sound, they like the potential, and then they want to get you in to hear you for real in context. So yeah, I think that probably does help in a way, that it's also for the mind, it's quite tough psychologically.
Yeah, because you get the professional auditioners, that are just can nail the audition, but then can't actually play in a section.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess it allows you and then on the flip side, the folks that can't really audition well, or they're more hit or miss at auditions, but they're great in the section. So those,
or the people who might
out,
do a perfect audition, but you wouldn't want to sit in an airport lounge with them for 3 hours waiting for a delayed flight on tour. It does make sense in terms of just trying to find, who's the best fit musically, but also socially. And there are lots.
There are compromise.
Yeah.
Right. There's got to be something in between.
A deadline. I think a deadline. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it happened to me recently, actually, that I was on trial for a job with a different orchestra for about 3 years for their principal trumpet job. And actually things, in that time, was offered a job in a different orchestra, Britten Sinfonia, which is the chamber orchestra that I'm principal trumpet of. So, I stayed on trial with this other orchestra anyway, just 'cause I thought, well, I already had that. I'll just wait and see, because you can have more than one job. Britten Sinfonia is not a full-time job. Any trumpet chamber orchestra job is not necessarily full-time. So I thought I'll stay with it and see. And then in that time, I mean, we can talk about this later maybe, but I'm expecting a baby, and
I saw that on your newsletter.
Yay! Exactly.
So we can't go too long with this interview because we're not that close, hopefully. But
no, that would be pretty bad luck if it was tonight. But thank you very much. But I mean, I think it's just kind of funny how sometimes with these trials it feels a bit like, the ball is in their court kind of thing. And it feels a bit like they're the ones choosing you. They're the ones deciding after each patch of work. But this particular one, I love playing with this orchestra. I hope I will work with them as a guest player many times in the future. But I think various things changed in my life. So it was a mixture of the job, pregnancy. Again, we can come on to this later, but I have a solo agent now, management, and all these sorts of things combining actually made me realize, actually, I'm in a very different place in my life and my career to when I auditioned 3 years ago. And that's quite natural that can happen at my age, or, whatever. And it just made me think, actually, this is not the fit for my life that I thought it was anymore. So I pulled out of that trial and said, thank you so much. It's been amazing. And I'd still love to work here. It's not personal. It's just really about the fact that my life is now very different to how it was 3 years ago. And I think that can happen quite a lot as well, that when it takes such a long time to make a decision, actually, the tables can turn a bit, and it's the auditionee who can say, or the trialist, who can say, yeah, actually, this doesn't work for me anymore. So it's a risk the orchestras take to take a long time, because it means that they can lose people. I might not got the job anyway. I will never know, and that's okay. But it was kind of quite liberating for me to make that decision and think, actually, thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we've had folks on the various podcasts that got in, they won their dream position and realized that it was a toxic situation. They didn't like the orchestra. They didn't like the MD, or they didn't like the section, or a combination of those things. And here you are, you've won this position, and now with a salary and benefits and things like that. And it's like, well, do I stay in this that's like ruining my sanity just because I've made it and it's my dream? And so
and people think
there's two sides to that coin, people
think you'd be crazy to leave it, but then actually you're the only one that knows how it makes you feel. It's interesting.
So you're doing a little bit of everything, right? So you're playing with the chamber, the Britain Sinfonia, you sub in all kinds of different groups as guest principal. And how has that developed? Was that since you won that audition, or is it just being in the UK for so long, in London, getting your name out there?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it's a case of, being established freelancer, I suppose, in the London scene particularly. I do some other work outside of London, but actually for me, most of my work really is London based, which is convenient. It's where I live, and it's actually where I grew up as well. So I really love that. But for my job actually at Britten Sinfonia, it's a slightly different way to get that job, because I had played with them for the first time, I think in 2021. We did some performances of the Messiah, and I was on principal trumpet, a guest principal. Their principal trumpet actually was living abroad at this point, kind of during COVID, so it wasn't around very much. But as I said, you can probably get away with quite a lot within a chamber orchestra, because you're just not needed so often on the trumpet, especially during COVID. You didn't need to be around. But I performed as principal trumpet in this patch of work, and I was really keen to impress them, because I knew it was an orchestra I was really excited to work with. So I memorized the trumpet shell sound, and I thought, it means that I can stand anywhere. The conductor can tell me to go anywhere, and I can just play it and stand up and do it, and not faff around with the music stand and stuff. So I think that that sort of got noticed. I think that I suppose gone to that extra effort, but also it felt like something that really played to my strengths, like playing those beautiful piccolos, trumpet arias and things. So I really enjoyed that, and that was my first time with them. And then I did other patches of work with them over the next couple of years. But when their principal trumpet job then became vacant, the manager of the orchestra actually called me and just said, kind of out of the blue, he just said, the principal trumpet job is now available, and if you would like the job, we would all really like you to have it. And we've decided that we don't want to go through the normal process of auditions and trials. If you'd like it, it's yours. And I think some people, I can definitely imagine some people would think that's unfair. She was handed it on a plate, or, no one else got a chance to, to be offered it. But I think, and that wouldn't happen with a symphony orchestra. They have rules and things that they have to abide by, I think. But I think the chamber orchestras, I think, are a bit more of a law unto themselves. And it was just it felt obviously incredible that they just decided that they would rather just ask me outright. And after I'd been through all of these trial processes and was still on trial in other places and things, I was like, well, you know what? I've been through quite a lot with those processes. I'm pretty happy to take what I'm offered, to say yes, please. And I knew I loved working there. So it was a complete dream come true, basically, to be offered that. And that phone call, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because I just never imagined that would happen. Yeah. So that was how that job came about. But as I said, it's not full time at all. So I get sent the schedule, but maybe I'm probably needed for a couple of days a month, if that sometimes, or it goes in waves. Sometimes there are quite a lot of projects on. They're a very busy orchestra, loads of string only work and things with the winds, but not always with brass. And actually I'm the principal trumpet, but there is no second trumpet. So there's just one position in the trumpets. And so that's quite nice for me. I always get to choose who plays with me. There's no kind of, I didn't inherit anyone in a sense in terms of having a second player. So that's also a really lovely thing about it. But yeah, through freelancing and having done auditions, it meant that I was on the fixing lists of lots of different orchestras. And yeah, the main orchestras I work with, certainly in the last couple of years, my main one is the London Symphony Orchestra, where I had done an audition for second trumpet, I think it was, before COVID. And that audition, I thought it was the best audition I'd ever done. Actually, I was really delighted with it. And I didn't get a trial from that. And I remember being like super disappointed because I just thought, I really thought my perspective or perception of what was good clearly isn't right because they didn't think it was good. Anyway, when I ended up talking to them and finding out some feedback from that audition, they'd said, well, it was a brilliant audition. It just wasn't a second trumpet audition at all in the sense of I played so soloistically and hadn't really and kind of completely naively, hadn't really given any thought to thinking, well, what might they be wanting to hear as a second trumpet? I just didn't consider that. And I certainly use that as a bit of a kind of warning story to students now, or saying, do make sure you think about, obviously you can't know what the panel are looking for, but do try and consider what they might be looking for a principal audition as opposed to a third trumpet audition or second. And so that was sort of my downfall there. But I'd never worked with the orchestra before, but they put me on their extra list, their DEP list. And it meant that basically, I started getting work with them, firstly as, down the line, third trumpet or just kind of in the section. And then eventually as doing some principal trumpet work. So yeah, in the last couple of years, I've done quite a bit of stuff there, which has been amazing.
Wow. Have they ever had another female principal trumpet before?
Well, I think
that you're aware of?
They've never had a female principal in the job there. I think perhaps there may have been one, maybe two people who've played maybe in like one recording session or one-off concert type of thing as principal. But in terms of, for a tour or for a longer patch of work, I think I might be one of the first, or certainly one of the first.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. They've actually just appointed a female third trumpet in the last few months, which is super exciting. And she's actually, I think she's third generation LSO player because both of her parents were members of the orchestra, and her grandfather as well was, I think, a French horn player in the orchestra. So the lineage of that is just amazing. And, that's just a kind of coincidence that she's got the family because she's such an amazing player. She should be there, of course she should be there. That's the first thing, but it's just this amazing kind of luck that she's, her family have been there too.
Wonderful. Well, so tell me, what is it like sitting in the principal chair of an iconic orchestra like that? I mean, it's pretty cool. I think it can feel a bit scary sometimes. I think for me, I'm sometimes conscious that because I actually never grew up thinking I want to be principal of any orchestra. Actually, that was never my dream to be principal trumpet of a symphony orchestra. Of course, I recognize the importance of it and the excitement of it. But I don't think I sit there with the kind of fear of like, oh my gosh, I'm in this chair. I don't think I necessarily feel that weight of responsibility so much. So I think that helps me. I also, I enjoy anything that says solo on the part. That's my favorite bit, whereas other people might kind of think, oh my gosh, that I, don't want to stick out. But I really love those moments. So I think that helps as well, that even though it's a kind of slightly scary thing, but we did, a tour just recently we were playing Britten's violin concerto, Benjamin Britten, and it's got a huge trumpet moment in the last movement, the third movement, Passacaglia, and it's this big, pretty terrifying moment actually, but it was sort of my favorite bit in every concert because it just like the trumpet just kind of emerges out of this texture and you just kind of plow through and have to keep, it gets louder and louder and more intense. And I just loved that. But there was also quite a fun thing in that same tour. We were playing, because people chop and change during the concert. Some people would be playing principal in the first half. I was playing principal in the first halves and third trumpet in the second halves, or fourth trumpet. I was mixing around. But for one of the pieces in the first half, I think there were 5 women on principals in the wind and brass, and that was the most ever they've had, female principals. So that felt quite momentous to be, one part of that. And it's only I believe it really is only going to keep improving in that sense. Yeah. Oh, that's so encouraging. How cool. Oh man, I got the shivers.
Yeah.
Pinnacle of classical music.
Yeah, it's very special.
And I want to talk about your album
Hmm.
because along with doing all of the chamber and orchestral stuff, you came out with a Connection that was earlier this year, or was it was
Yeah.
relatively recent, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, released at the end of April, and I kind of launched it with a concert in the start of May. Yeah.
Mhm. So what brought you to record an album?
Well, I'd always been interested in kind of putting something out there that was, my musical voice and putting out a recording. But mainly it stemmed from the fact that I've been quite lucky. I've had quite a lot of pieces written for me over the last maybe 10 or 15 years. Some things sort of just landed on my lap, like there's a commission by firstly my youth orchestra that I was part of. They commissioned a quite eminent local composer to write me a trumpet concerto. This is Stephen Dodgson. Write me a concerto as my kind of leaving gift from the orchestra, which I think is pretty unusual and pretty amazing. And I think I didn't quite realize when I got to the academy and thought, well, I've already had a concerto written for me. Not many people by someone like him who, in the UK was, a well-known composer. And that was pretty incredible. It was actually his last ever piece that he wrote as well, because he passed away not so long after.
Jeez.
And there was another, I was part of a thing called the Park Lane Group scheme, which is a soloist scheme that I auditioned for with my pianist. And that was a recital scheme. They give you concerts around London. And we just happened to be selected for it on their 60th anniversary celebratory year, and they had some funding for commissioning, so they commissioned a composer called Sally Beamish, another kind of big British composer, to write a piece for trumpet and piano. And because they had a trumpet and piano duo that year, and that was us, so things like that just sort of, I didn't have to pay for them, I didn't have to ask for them even, they just were kind of gifted to me, which is amazing. And then other ones where I've maybe become good friends with a composer and I thought, I'd like to commission you to write something for me, or kind of other avenues. So I had all these different pieces, either written for me, perhaps arranged for me. On the album, there's an arrangement by my dad. There's an arrangement by my husband. And there's another piece, a couple of pieces that haven't been written or arranged for me, but ones that I sort of have slightly taken as my own. And there's one of the best example, I think, of that is this piece called the Sonatina for Solo Trumpet by Peter Maxwell Davis. And that piece, it was written, I think, 1981. And I played it in a masterclass when I was at the academy. And actually the German trumpet professor who was there, who was taking the class, was really excited about the piece and asked us something about it and said, I wonder what Maxwell Davis thought of that, or why he wrote that. And someone said, he's teaching upstairs today, you can go and get him. And this is a really, very well-known British composer. He was master of the Queen's music and all that kind of thing. And so this teacher said, you must go and get him. And they brought him down from his class, and I got to perform the piece to him, to the composer himself.
Oh my gosh.
And this is like my first term at the academy. It was bonkers, right at the deep end. But, I then, when I decided to record this, I played this piece then for years, kind of, feeling like I had the composer's blessing on how I played it. And then when I recorded it earlier this year or last year for the album, as far as we know, is the first ever recording of that piece. So really? I do kind of, I feel like I've made the kind of definitive version, which is really cool. And so I just had literally, I couldn't think of an album title for a long time. And then I just kept saying, I've just got this, I've got a connection to every single piece and every single composer. There's a reason why they're on there. And so, connection then seemed very obvious, actually. I couldn't believe I hadn't thought about it.
That's that makes sense now with the title. I mean, how many pieces with a direct connection to the composer that you can now go and say this is the definitive version with a direct connection to the composer. Oh, that's
and I did an album launch concert early this year. In fact, I was about 9 or 10 weeks pregnant, feeling dreadful. I don't quite know how I got through it, but somehow
that's a first trimester, right? If I
in the height of the sickness. It was a weird time, because actually, weirdly, playing the trumpet was the only thing that didn't make me feel sick in that time. It was literally the only thing that stopped my sickness.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of how I was able to get through it. But at this concert, there were 5 living composers on my album, and they were all there. And it was so special, to get, they introduced their pieces, and for the audience to kind of see literally the connection between, the music and the person and my connection to them. It was just a really, really special thing. Yeah.
What an experience, man! I wished I was there.
Oh.
Do you have a picture with all the
I've got
composers together?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've got pictures.
Oh,
I decided
my
not
gosh.
to. I decided not to film it in the end. Originally, I thought, I'll video the whole thing, and actually, in the end, I thought, I'd already put a lot of effort and money, I think, into filming all of the pieces, because I thought, well, the whole point of the album for me was actually just to get these pieces out there, to get more people playing them. So I wanted them to be not just on audio, but also on YouTube. So I put a lot of effort and time into making sure that we had really good quality videos of all the pieces. And then I kind of thought, well, I've got all of that. I could film the concert, but actually sometimes it's just nice to live in the moment and perform and not think, I'm going to be watching this back, or is it good enough for YouTube or whatever. So yeah, I don't have video footage of that concert, but as far as I can remember, it was one of the best times. I think the best concerts I've ever done, and that will stay in my memory. I don't even need to watch it back to know that it was really, I knew that music so well, and I loved it so much that it was just a kind of perfect culmination of this project.
Incredible. And yeah, for folks listening, we'll have the links to the website and Spotify and all of that stuff. But you have videos of you performing all of the pieces, and hopefully we can see that photo with you and all the composers.
Oh,
That's
for
so
sure,
cool.
I'll send it. But something nice as well is my dad. Particularly one of his piece on the album is an arrangement of a folk song, and he has kindly gifted that arrangement for trumpeters everywhere or musicians everywhere. So it's free. It's a free download from my website, and I just really I get emails all the time from people in America a lot, and South Korea and the Netherlands, and people all over the world downloading that music and performing it. So yeah, I just want these pieces to be played all over the world, and that's my dream.
I'm going to download as soon as we're done here. I have something to play this weekend.
Enjoy.
How cool. Well, and I hate to ask the question, because I know, putting out an album is a labor of love. No pun intended.
Yes.
Is there going to be a volume 2? Do you have ideas for the next album now that this one's
out?
Well,
I think there definitely could be, because since I recorded it, I recorded the music in the summer of 2024 and then released it in spring 25. And since then, I've had 3 new pieces written for me that I've given premieres of, each of which I would love to record for another album. Or there's other arrangements that I kind of think, I'd love to do that. And so my dad I think is a wonderful arranger, and yeah, there's certainly ideas brewing. I think it was a huge undertaking, because I didn't actually do it through a record label either. I did it myself. In terms of, I worked with an amazing recording team. They were sort of my distributor. It's all kind of confusing, but it just wasn't really done under a label as such. So the benefits to that were that I was able to make every decision for myself, and I could change my mind about things at the very last minute if I wanted to. I didn't need to consult anyone else. But then the flip side is all of that. I had to make every decision. I had no one else that I could really consult who was as invested as me. And yeah, if I didn't do a job or send an email, no one else did it on my behalf. So it was a huge amount of work. And I think I'm so glad I did it. I feel like I learned so much about, music copyright and licensing and at the actual recording and the financial aspects of doing a project like this. But I'm not sure I would choose to do it in the same way again, because I think, I've done it, been there, done it. And I've learned a huge amount. And at some point I would love actually to kind of put what I learn into some sort of, maybe a YouTube video or some sort of presentation that helps other people if they want to do it, because the feeling of ownership and feeling of like the satisfaction from it is amazing. And I think you shouldn't have to go through a big record label to put something out there. But another time I would be delighted to work with a record label who take on a lot of that stuff. And I think, this is pre-children, in a different type of different stage of life. And I think I can imagine that in the future, I would certainly be looking for someone else to do that with me.
There are some luxuries to having a record label behind you, but what you're talking about, the control and the accountability, things like that come with that. And Well, I can't wait to see that video when you when you put it together and how to record your album. There's a couple topics I do want to hit before we wrap up here, because also I know it's late over there. One, so we've had a few trumpet playing guests who had to play through pregnancy and childbirth, things like that. One recently was Liesl Whitaker. She was the great lead player with the Army Blues and Jazz Ambassadors here in the U.S. And I think her second child, she played up till like a few days before her second child was born. I mean, you were just, I mean, I think I looked at your calendar, you still have concerts coming up, right, in November, and you're due literally in a few weeks in December. How's that?
Yeah.
How are you coping with that? Talk us through it, because I have zero experience with this.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been really interesting, because I just didn't know how I was going to feel. And I'd spoken to some other friends and colleagues, one of whom said she'd never felt so good as when she was, full term pregnancy, and her piccolo trumpet playing was like through the roof, and she had, the support she felt was incredible. And another player who just said they just could not get enough breath in. They just could not take big enough breaths to support any kind of phrase, any long phrase. So it was kind of interesting. I wasn't sure which way it was going to go. And actually, so now I'm 36 weeks pregnant. So I'm due in a month. And I'd been sort of warned by midwives that this would be the time when my lungs, the bump was big, and my lungs would be the most compressed when all the other organs are squished around them. And then actually in that last month, your bump is heavier, so it drops down a bit and your lungs get a bit of relief. So I kind of thought, well, actually, maybe the later I go, the better I might feel in terms of with the lungs. But I'm actually really pleased to say that for me, I actually haven't felt any impact on my playing, any negative impact on my playing at all. I don't think. In fact, I feel like some recent concerts I've done, I did a couple of solo recitals last week, and I think there's some of the best playing I've done. I think I felt I had lots of support physically, and I don't think pregnancy necessarily affects your chops, but in terms of making them stronger, but I just felt like in a really great place chops wise as well. Weirdly, earlier on in the pregnancy, I had a couple of times, a few weeks, where I felt like my production and something that I'm actually normally can just rely on in terms of quiet production, particularly. I felt like something wasn't working as I was used to it working, and notes were just cut out. If I went too quiet, notes would just stop without me expecting them to. And of course, there's lots of reasons why that might happen. I don't really know, but I was actually pretty convinced it was linked to some kind of hormonal change or something, because it was just so unexpected and something I'd never experienced before. And I had also kind of like the corners of my lips had cuts, or kind of they kind of split. They were really dry, and so it didn't affect my playing, because obviously the middle of my lips was absolutely fine, but it was the corners. And again, it's a pregnancy thing, and that's kind of come and gone my whole pregnancy. Like sometimes the corners have been absolutely fine, sometimes they've been really cracked, and if I eat a big mouthful of breakfast and they crack in the morning, I'm like, oh no, like that, it's quite painful. But it didn't, just things that didn't actually affect the playing, but just certainly affected me physically around that. But yeah, I've got 2 concerts left, both with the LSO, and it's 2 weeks in a row, and I'm playing 4th trumpet in one piece in each program. So they've kind of been very generous with their work offers, and just said, we'll give you the work so I can keep earning money, I think, until I'm ready to stop, but nothing too crazy or too strenuous. So that's really nice of them.
Yeah, 4th trumpet, although it's not quite Haydn.
No.
Trumpet, but still good. You're getting the work and playing right up. And then and your plan is to then take a few months off when the kiddo's born.
Yeah. I don't really know. I don't really have any set plan about it, and I think that's probably for the best for me in terms of I might. Well, as I said, in terms of practicing, as you heard from the start of this, I might love this excuse not to have to practice, because, it'd be like, well, that's what, as I said, felt like a bit of a chore. But actually, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if I just think, actually, I do just want to play because I like playing and I miss it. And, in some ways, maybe it'd be a bit strange that the baby has heard me play pretty much every day of his life so far. And then once he's born, I might not play for a few months, and that would actually be maybe quite weird for him. I have no idea. So I think I would like to, and also that, when the kicking that I feel, when I'm actually playing, I don't notice any movement, but as soon as I stop, I get a lot of kicking and squirming, and I never know whether it's because he's loving it or hating it. So I would say we're going to find out pretty soon whether it's, a love or hate thing. Hopefully he's loving it, but we don't know.
Yeah. My wife's a middle school band director, and when her beginning strings played particularly out of tune, both of my sons would start punching. So it was a good line, please play in tune because I can't take this anymore. My kids are punching.
On this tour recently with the LSO, I was bumping in Shostakovich's 10th Symphony, and there's a lot of loud music in there, and I actually didn't have tons to play, but it was such a weird feeling. Just the baby was going bonkers in some bits, and I said to the principal trumpet, I said, I just wanted to grab your hand and put it there and just be like, look at what's happening, because it feels weirdly kind of lonely, like not lonely, but you think, I can't believe I'm the only person who feels this, because it's so amazing and weird. And he said, I would have loved to have felt that, but maybe not mid-concert. But and
those are the kinds of things that we don't even think about or consider, and that's when you're sitting in there pregnant and the baby's hearing it and enjoying it or not.
I hope so. Yeah. But I have got pretty lucky with the pregnancy, and obviously I felt pretty grim in the first trimester, but since then it's been good, and I really do just feel just like myself, but with a big tummy. So it's a good feeling, and I'm really excited for what's to come, and I'm excited to take a break from playing. I've never taken more than a couple of weeks off ever. So it'll be interesting to navigate that and getting back into it.
Going to be a fun holiday season for you and the
Indeed.
family. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Last thing I want to bring up, and it's got to be one of the best acronyms I came across, GALSI. Tell me about GALSI.
Wonderful GALSI. Well, GALSI is a very cool name because it's short for Gender and the Large and Shiny Instruments. And it's an initiative that I'm linked with, and they promote gender equality for the large and shiny instruments. So we're talking brass, percussion, double bass, organ, any instruments that are traditionally probably more male-dominated fields. And so GALSI really try and promote opportunities for female brass player or female players, or those who identify as female or non-binary. And we recently did a course. They've done a course every year, I think maybe the last 4 years. And this was held at the Royal College of Music, who are like super into this scheme as well, like really, really supportive of the initiative. And I think we had 55 brass and percussion players between the ages of 8 and 18. And it was just an awesome thing to watch, to see all these women coming together. All of the tutors are female or female identifying. And it's just a really inspiring place, I think, for them for these children to be. And it's something that I can't even imagine having had when I was growing up. I certainly didn't. I had, amazing female role models like Alison and Tina, but I never had a lesson or, with a female trumpeter. During my whole time at the academy, there were no female brass teachers. We never had a class or a lesson, any kind of visiting professor who was female. And it just wasn't something that I was exposed to much at all. I kind of didn't question it at the time, because you kind of just accept the status quo often, don't you? And we had lots of amazing people coming to work with us. But I think now there's kind of no excuse not to be having a mix of genders, because there are so many brilliant players, male and female, now on offer.
Yeah, and when we started this conversation, I was on the website, and there's a great graphic that's, what does it say? It's the data collected in 2024 of full-time symphony orchestras and conservatoires in the UK. And it's like, horn, 89% male, double bass, 78% male, timpani, 100% male, and you see the graphs, and it's just, we're
in terms of the professors. Yeah.
And it's, we're catching up, but not fast enough.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really do feel like I do see a change. I mean, I feel like the brass section in something like the London Symphony Orchestra, I think they're very conscious, I think, but I'm not sure it's even a conscious thing. They just, the players they like are a mix of male and female, and it's just that they're the people that they book. So whether they are actively trying to make sure it's kind of mixed, or it's not necessarily balanced, because that's just maybe unrealistic at the moment. But I would certainly wouldn't expect to be the only woman in the brass section when in the trumpets and trombones when I'm there. But I think, lots of orchestras and lots of sections have a lot of catching up to do for sure. And music colleges as well. I think for the faculty and the opportunities they give to different players, I think need to make sure that they're really encouraging everyone. Yeah.
So that's, was it largeandshiny.com?
That's it. Yeah.
And we'll have the link to that so folks can learn about it and donate if they want, or see about the goings on events and things. And it's some wonderful resources as well that are on the website. So, that's, I was so
go Galsy.
Yeah. A couple quick questions before we go.
Sure.
Equipment, what do you use? Trumpets, and I'm sure you have a whole arsenal of instruments, but let's go through the main ones.
Sure. So my main trumpet is a Bach Stradivarius, and it's 25 large bore, which I think is quite unusual. Yeah. And I chose it when I was, I think, 14. Kind of had a choice between different trumpets, and to be honest, kind of embarrassingly, there were two boys who played trumpets in my youth orchestra. One of them played a 25L, one played 37 medium large, and I liked the 25 large bore him better. I liked him better as a person and a player. So I thought, well, I want to have what he has. So I kind of went with it for that. I mean, I did like the trumpet itself too, but it served me well. And I actually bought a new Bach 25L at the end of last year, end of 2024. And I to be honest, I'm not a massive kind of gear person. I don't get a lot of thrill out of trying lots of different instruments, and it's not something that really interests me so much. So when I decided I wanted a new B-flat trumpet, I went to the main trumpet shop in London and just said, do you have any Bach 25 large bore? And they said, no, we don't really sell those anymore. And I was like, oh. And I said, could you try and see if there's anywhere? And they said, well, call Bach. And while I was on the phone, he said, there's one in the country. And I said, please send that one to me. And that's the one I want. And if it hadn't clicked for me, if it wasn't right, there's no way I would have bought it. But it really was. I just played it and was like, yeah, this is what I know. This is what I love. I just kind of want a new trumpet. And I stuck with what I loved. So that's what I play. I use a Warburton mouthpiece, 3MC, and the back bores, I have a 10 and a 10 star. So I kind of, for more symphonic playing, I put the star one in. Anything slightly smaller ensemble wise or solo, I tend to use the 10. C trumpet, I play a Yamaha Chicago C trumpet. And I actually have different instruments, all different models really. So brands. So I have my E flat D trumpet is a Stomvy Master, and my piccolo trumpet is a Kanstel, and my flugelhorn, which is my original baby before the next one arrives. My original baby. So my flugelhorn, which is the instrument I love playing the most really. And that is a Yamaha Series 6 Bobby Shoe
nice
model. And I use a Warburton mouthpiece for that as well. Number 5 flugel. Yeah. So I also have a GR mouthpiece, or a GR for the piccolo. And I have a GR mouthpiece for my B flat, if I want that extra help, extra push up into the high register. I don't quite love West End shows and things like that. And that's the kind of thing you just want to have the option to put it in. So I do use a GR for that and I love it. But awesome. that's my full amount, I think.
That's the arsenal. Oh my gosh. Well, Imogen, thank you so much for your time. We could go on, but we'll have to do a volume 2 because we didn't. I was going to say we didn't even get into like your studio stuff and the commercial playing you do, because that's also a part of your career.
Yeah.
So we'll have to catch up maybe when the kiddo's in grade school or something.
Well,
a little bit more time.
Sounds great. It'll probably fly by. So yeah.
Next few years are going to be fun. I'm looking forward to hearing and what's going on. So before I let you go, I ask this of all of my guests. One last question: if you could leave our listeners with your best piece of advice, and it could be about anything, doesn't necessarily have to be trumpet related, what would that be?
I think it might seem cheesy because it's actually. The words I'm going to say is actually it's the words of the title of the first piece on my album, and it's actually just to stay open. And it's this piece. To talk about that quickly, it was this beautiful new flugelhorn piece that was written for me last year, and the composer Charlotte Harding kind of described it as like a feminine fanfare. It's really amazing. And actually, there's quite a fun YouTube video if anyone wants to check it out of me playing it in a cave in the UK, in the Peak District, up north.
Oh, cool.
And anyway, cool. It's a really beautiful piece, and I think quite an artistic video. So check it out. But To Stay Open, actually, just I feel like that just covers so many different things for me. It's about staying open, in terms of I was so set in, the kind of career I thought I would have in terms of solo stuff. And then actually once I opened myself up to noticing all the other amazing things you could do and still do solo stuff as well, I think that not closing myself off to opportunities just because I thought that one thing was exactly what I wanted, and realizing that actually everything feeds into each other. So staying open to that, staying open to all opportunities. Of course, as you go through your career, you won't necessarily have the bandwidth or the time or the energy to say yes to everything, of course. So you have to protect your energy a bit. But I think staying open as a person means that you'll probably get on so well with your colleagues, open musically to all different genres. I don't really listen to much classical music. I'm a musical theatre fanatic, and I love singer-songwriters and pop music. And when I sit down and put Spotify on and I'm warming up, that's the kind of thing I'll play along to. I love just playing along to current music. So I just think openness is a key quality in life, however you relate to it. But to stay open would be my advice.
Stay open. Absolutely brilliant advice. Oh man, I could talk to you all day and all night. Imogen,
thanks,
what an
John.
honor it's been.
You're very easy to talk to as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And just like Father Christmas brought you the real trumpet how many years ago? Hopefully, Father Christmas brings you something else this holiday.
Well, a real baby. That would be
a real healthy baby. Blessings to you and your family this holiday.
Thank you.
I'm excited to hear about your new family member, and keep us in the loop.
I will do for sure.
With going on. So we have largeandshiny.com for Galsy website, and Imogen Whitehead Trumpet is your personal website. And you have links to all your social media and YouTube and all that through there.
Yeah, and I have a newsletter on there as well, which is kind of like I felt like quite a nice way just to keep people updated with what I'm up to. I only send things out maybe every 8 weeks or something, so no one is going to be bombarded or feeling like their inbox is filling up with my stuff at all. But it's just a really nice way, I think, for people to keep in touch, so they can sign up to that through my website if they'd like to.
Sign up for that. And hopefully we'll see a baby picture, right?
Oh, for sure. Yep.
That'll be in the next newsletter. Okay. If that's not an impetus to sign up, to get someone's email address, I'll do that for baby pictures. I love it. Imogen, thank you so much. What an absolute honor to have you on.
Pleasure. Thanks, John.
Well, a huge thank you to Imogen. What a pleasure it was to interview her. And my goodness, so I'd done some research. I listened to her album and checked her website out, her bio, and was, familiar with some of the things she had done. And as we were getting ready to do the interview, I downloaded her most recent newsletter, and there's an ultrasound. I was like, oh my goodness. Well, that's cool. Maybe we can bring up that she's having a baby. And then I read further, and it said she was due in December. So huge congratulations to Imogen and her husband, Rupert, who, by the way, we're going to have on the Trombone Corner podcast. He's a trombonist with the Royal Philharmonic. So I have a connection. So he'll be on that other podcast sometime in the future, probably after the kid is born. But lest I digress, huge thank you to Imogen. What a wonderful story she has. Her journey through, solo playing and chamber music and orchestral playing, her teachers, getting to go up to Norway and study with Tina, and great to see where her career is going. And to imagine releasing an album and then doing a recital tour in your first trimester of pregnancy. absolutely inspiring. As she said, thankfully the trumpet playing went well, but I'm sure the 23 or 22 and a half hours around the recital was difficult. If it was anything like what my wife experienced in her pregnancies. So I'm really glad she could share those stories. And please check out her website, her social media, check out the videos from her album. Like she said, she didn't record the recitals, but she has video performances of every track off of her album Connection. And please check out Galsy, largeandshiny.com, the gender and the large and shiny instruments. They're doing some wonderful work for gender equality. And as we discussed, we're making headway. Go back to the interviews with Susan Slaughter and Marie Speziali. Some of their stories, well, even Liesl Whitaker, a little younger generation, but still, there's still a lot more we need to do. Still a lot more progress that needs to be made in terms of gender equality in musical instruments. So check out their website, largeandshiny.com. Again, happy Thanksgiving to those in the U.S. who are celebrating and those who are still thankful around the world. It's not a U.S. only thing. We're thankful for all of you. Keep those emails coming. It really does. It brings smiles to my face. I have an email I received that actually brought tears the other day, and I'll share that in a future episode. The things we do here, it's not just heavy valve caps and valve oils and things. It really is about connection. Pun intended, for Imogen's album, connecting with each other. And that's why we go on the road. So hope to see you in Tokyo. If not, hope to see you at one of the many, many events I'm going to be at in 2026. Until next time, let's go out and make some music.